Welcome back to the Fantasy Brothers podcast. We are two very, very tilted fellas over here.
It happened. Can't be too tilted.
Yes, you can, and I am.
Yeah. But the draft happened. This was like, we've been building towards this. We got there.
Yeah.
We knew there was going to be some highs, and there were most definitely some lows.
There were indeed. There's a lot to get into. We're going to be basically giving our reaction for the first 3 rounds of the NFL draft. We're recording this Saturday, so round
Saturday
4 will
morning.
be happening tonight. It may have already happened by the time you're listening to this.
It starts at 12. We're recording this a couple hours before that.
Okay. I'm going to try and get this thing out while round 4, like right before round 4 starts. But we'll see how
most of the fantasy relevant stuff is over. You're going to have a few running backs still that we liked, maybe past tense, maybe still like them. We'll see, because they will be day 3 picks. Maybe a couple of receivers, but the fantasy relevant stuff for the most part is done, locked in.
Yeah. There's a couple pieces of news to get into before we hop into the draft. Obviously, the really big one, the low-hanging fruit here, Lamar Jackson signed his mega deal. He got 5 years up to $260 million. I think it was 185 guaranteed.
Yeah.
He gets all things considered.
Is it $53 million a year?
It's
I know he beat Jalen Hurts. It's not like it's going to happen every time one of these guys signs a deal, but
yeah.
Waiting Burrow and Herbert are going to beat his deal. So
yes. Yeah. I mean, when Jalen Hurts signed his, I felt like that was a good sign for Lamar, just because Jalen Hurts' deal was not ridiculous. Like, the reason why this probably took so long was because Deshaun Watson was the last deal to really get done for a young quarterback. I mean, obviously Russell Wilson got a deal. Aaron Rodgers got a deal.
Deshaun's deal was foolish.
Deshaun's deal was stupid. I think that was Jimmy Haslam giving the bird to like the rest of the league, because nobody else can pay that contract. That thing was ridiculous. So for Jalen Hurts to sign one, obviously got paid a lot of money, but the guaranteeds, it's not 230 or whatever it was that just is going to have the Browns in cap hell for 4 years. That sort of cleared the runway for Lamar to get this deal done. So he signs $260 million over 5 years. He's locked in. I am very, very excited about the Ravens 2023 outlook. I thought that perhaps, and this ties into our piece of news number 2, I thought that perhaps they would go get DeAndre Hopkins. They did not.
I was seeing news pieces here and there, but I thought it was like almost a done deal. Like the Ravens had locked in a deal for Hopkins. They were just waiting to do it on draft night. And then it started coming out later that maybe they would use him in a trade to get out of the 3rd pick. So
yeah, I mean,
they're probably going to keep him.
They probably will. But what the Ravens did do, and this, again, it hops into the draft stuff. The Ravens did draft a receiver. They got Zay Flowers in the 1st round. So, Zay Flowers is not DeAndre Hopkins, but it's definitely a nice piece added to the wide receiver room. The weapons look pretty good. Todd Monken's there as the OC. I am of the opinion the Ravens are going to throw roughly 500 times next year. For context, Lamar Jackson has attempted more than 400 passes once in his NFL career. So that leap in passing volume would be huge. And I think that, 500 passes flat is that's not an enormous amount. That would probably be, 15th in the NFL or something, like maybe even less than that. It might even be closer to like 20th. So it's not like they're going to immediately be a top 10 passing volume offense. But I do think that if they just throw the ball more than 440 times, you're going to see the narrative change a little bit around these pass catchers. Is not going to be looked at as such a low volume offense. And I do think if Lamar passes more and gives you more passing production, his rushing production is probably not really going to dip all that much. He's going to be electric for fantasy.
He's back into the perennial top 5 for fantasy every year.
Okay, why don't we hop into some early winners? We're going to obviously go through all these picks, but I do think it's worth mentioning all these,
Veterans.
all these veterans that have, for the most part, seemingly dodged bullets. So I'm going to fire off some names at you. Just hit me with whatever comes to mind. We have early winners: Cam Akers, Ramondre Stevenson, Khalil Herbert, Rashad White, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Rashad Penny, Dalvin Cook, Joe Mixon, Austin Eckler, and Tony Pollard.
So I was worried about Javonte Williams just because of the injury. I thought that Denver would definitely probably take in a guy, and they still may. However, I'm far less worried about a day 3 running back than a day 2 running back taking any of his work when he comes back. So that's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the only guy there right now is Samaje Perine. And like, he's fine, and he's probably going to be a huge value for fantasy, but he's not a rookie. So yeah, I do think it's a vote of confidence from Denver saying we believe Javante's our guy when he comes back healthy. Obviously, he's going to struggle until he's healthy, but it's not like somebody's going to have the chance to like steal his position as the team's RB1, I guess.
Yeah, in the leagues I had him, I wasn't trying to move him like for nothing. Obviously, I wanted decent value for him. Sorry. But I was, trying to move him for more on the teams I'm good, more of a chance to win now versus otherwise. But with this, I'm far more confident moving forward having Javonte Williams on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely good for J.K. Dobbins. I thought, obviously, Bijan did not fall there, but I thought they were a likely candidate to take him should he be there. Great for Tony Pollard because I thought that Jerry definitely was going to take either Gibbs or Bijan, whichever one was there.
Yeah.
And yeah, he put Cam Akers on here, which is great for Cam Akers. However, I don't think the Rams had a pick to even replace him anyway. So
they did have a 3rd-round pick, an early 3rd.
They did?
They took offense. I think they've had 2 or 3 picks in this draft so far, and they've taken all offensive linemen.
That's great, honestly. That's better for Cam Akers.
Yeah. So I didn't think that they would draft his replacement. I do think the coaching staff still loves Cam Akers, but there was always the chance that like there's just nobody else there. It is literally Cam Akers. It's Kyron Williams. That is it. And Kyron Williams did positively nothing last year. So I'm not convinced he's worth anything.
Cam Akers.
Yeah.
I'm not going to project him. I'm not going to be crazy like we were last year or the year before and project him as a top 10 running back or something like that. But I do think, I think top 20 is a reasonable expectation. I don't know if I'm ranking him there, but I think that's more than within the realm of possibilities. Go ahead.
My spicy take, he is my RB15 currently as I'm filling out my projections.
I'd say that's relatively spicy. I was going to have him between early projections, which, side note, I know you're working on rankings and projections. I'm going to do my own rankings as well. We'll definitely have those out. But I was probably going to have him in the 20 to 22 area, somewhere in there.
Yeah, yeah. The other one worth mentioning here, Ramondre Stevenson. I guess Khalil Herbert as well. I fully expected Chicago to take a running back. So them not doing that is obviously a huge vote of confidence for Khalil Herbert. I really thought the Patriots would take a running back, not because they needed one, but because they're the Patriots.
I was so scared. I'm glad Gibbs went at 12, honestly, because I thought the Patriots were definitely going to take him. And if they did, I was going to drop him down my rankings.
Ramondre is so good for fantasy. And I would have projected, I've got him as a top 10 running back next year. But if they would have taken, honestly, anybody in the top 2 rounds, obviously that sinks that a ton. Even, there were some good guys that went in the 3rd round, like Kendre Miller goes in the 3rd round, Tajay Spears, Devon Achane. So even if they took one of those guys, I would still be sort of scared about Ramondre. At this point, though, as we're going into the 4th round, likely it means they're probably going to take somebody at some point, but it doesn't mean most likely that player, whoever they take, is going to be significantly
at this point.
Stuff.
Worst case scenario for Ramondre is they bring in Sean Tucker or somebody. who we both like, Tucker, but I don't think Tucker really challenges him nearly as much as any of the other guys.
No, I mean, at this point, 4th round and on, there's a chance that a 4th round plus draft capital running back makes a fantasy impact, but it's like 15 to 20% chance instead of them being in the top 3 rounds, where like if you're a round 3 running back, it's probably closer to like a 50 or 60% chance you're pretty decent. A 2nd round, it's like 75% you're really good. So, you know, those thresholds for what you decide is really good sort of changes person to person. Yeah, but it's much more of a long shot now. So those guys have escaped. I still do think that there's potential for the Bengals, the let's see here, the Vikings and the Chargers to take somebody. They've got aging running backs in Cook, Mixon, Eckler. So
I'm just thinking, who's left that could go? I know Tucker.
Zach Evans.
Zach Evans is still on the board.
Bonaconda.
Yeah.
Past that,
those are the only ones I can really think of off the top of my head, though.
Yeah, it's Evans, Bonaconda, and Tucker, I think, are the only 3 that could potentially spoil some fantasy production from those guys. But why don't we hop into we got some losers.
There's 2 big ones. And finally you get hurt by one, because everybody knows the one that's going to hurt me, but I actually don't have any shares of the other guy, but you do.
I've got a couple. Well, we'll keep the surprise, but DeAndre Swift, hang
on
he
one
had
second.
you. Yeah, no worries.
I don't know how she just opened a closed door. Okay.
DeAndre Swift had you major tilted already, and now it is full tilt.
Okay. Now, now listen. I know you're probably going to call me crazy, but I think I have decent logic behind this time. It's not just blind, unconditional love. I think, if anything, this may be good for DeAndre Swift because this shows me that the Lions have absolutely no use for DeAndre Swift. So I do think they are going to move him. This shows their hand that they're done with him. They hate him. I don't know why. I don't know what he did, but the Lions hate him. So they are going to move him. They drafted DeAndre Swift 2.0, which means if they keep him, I'm not an idiot. If they keep him, he's at best a low-end RB3.
Yeah.
But I do not think they keep him at this point. So Dynasty, you can't sell him right now, but I think they will trade him, it can't hurt his value. It's only going to be good if they trade him.
Yeah.
And then even if they don't, he's going to walk next year and someone else will sign him.
Yeah, I mean, I do think to a certain extent you're right. It can't get worse. I can't see a way it gets worse personally, because even in my own projections right now, I mean, I just went in this morning and sort of did a rough pass at that backfield. I mean, I've got Gibbs as like a top 12 running back. I've got David Montgomery as like 20 to 25-ish. And that just sort of leaves Swift as the odd man out, where there's just no room for him to do anything. There's nothing that he can do that they don't already have somebody to do.
The guy is talented. Like, literally, the only knock on him is he gets injured. But when he is on the field, he is an electric player.
Yeah.
Which is, it's the same as Gibbs.
Right. Yeah. The problem is Gibbs is as good, if not a better player than Swift is.
Well, and I'm not going to argue that. I mean, Gibbs, he probably would have been the RB2 in that class when Swift came out. Because Swift was my RB2 that year behind Jonathan Taylor, and Gibbs would have been behind Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
Swift would have been 3. So Gibbs is a better player, but Swift is not far behind him.
Right.
But the fact that you have a guy this talented, you can't, if you're the Lions, you can't let him sit on your bench. Like, as talented as he is, you have to trade him. Get something for him.
They can let him sit on their bench.
They can, but
they
from a real life perspective, like, I think the Gibbs pick is a bad pick. From a real life perspective.
Yeah, I mean, like, pick value and everything.
Yeah, you can't take him that high.
Yeah, they probably
They traded
could have
back, and I
taken him.
thought it was clutch because I thought they were going to take Christian Gonzalez, which is who I thought they would take at 6.
Right. But reports have come out that they were comfortable taking Gibbs as high as 6, meaning they would have taken him over
Good
Bijan,
Lord.
which is, I mean, I can't imagine watching the film, turning that on and thinking Gibbs is a better player than Bijan.
And
But
Gibbs is great. We're not knocking the player.
no, that's not a knock
He's
because Bijan's
fantastic.
incredible.
Yeah.
But anyways, they took him very, very high. And it's just, you hate it, but the math says Swift is toast. He's done.
Yeah, Swift
unless
is out.
they trade him. So that's unfortunate. Also, my Seattle Seahawks had one of the better first rounds I have seen in a long time. And then in the second, I was so excited, man. We got Jackson Smith and Jigba. We got maybe my favorite corner. And then in the second round, they're like, hey, Kenneth Walker, F you, Zach Charbonnet.
Screw you, man.
What the crap?
Josh, go ahead. You take this one.
What the crap? So
I have thoughts on it, but you just tell me when you're ready. I'll let you take a minute here.
Okay. Real life, actual NFL winning and losing games, this is fantastic because Zach Charbonnet is a really good player. But for fantasy, this is just the worst because Kenneth Walker is an incredible player. And the problem is, so is Zach Charbonnet. And they're going to have to play both of them because they took Charbonnet as the third running back off the board in the second round.
Yeah, you can't take him in the mid-second round and just not play him, use him as solely a handcuff.
You cannot. But in my mind, there's two ways this goes. Either the Seahawks wanted a 1B complement to their 1A in Kenneth Walker. I do think, without a doubt, unless he gets hurt, Kenneth Walker is the lead back in whatever form of committee comes out of this. It's just a matter of how much of a committee is it.
He's better than Jack Charbonnet. I'm not going to argue that. But Zach Charbonnet himself is a phenomenal talent. Like, Zach Charbonnet would have been the RB3 out of last year's class for us. He's the RB3 in this year's class, but the RB3 last year, right behind Kenneth Walker. So I think Kenneth Walker, as phenomenal of a talent as he is, and he is better, he's not that much better than Zach Charbonnet. And you're not going to spend a mid-second round pick and not play Charbonnet. And the fact that Charbonnet is a pounder like Kenneth Walker is not good.
Yeah. So there's the possibility where he is a 1B complement to Walker's 1A. I could also see it being a situation where Seattle wanted another running back in the rotation. And rather than waiting for the fourth round to come around and taking one of those guys, they said, hey, Charbonnet is the best running back available. And
get the guy we like.
We're just going to take a good running back. And they're going to still play Kenneth Walker a lot. And Charbonnet is going to be the rotational piece, which if you were in on Charbonnet, that sucks. Regardless, it sucks because Charbonnet is not going to be a lead back.
Yeah, he was my, I don't know about you. You probably were the same. He was the fourth skill player on my overall list behind Bijan, Gibbs, and JSN. He was 4 for me.
I mean,
very high
before
on
the
him.
draft, I was debating Addison or Charbonnet pretty much.
I would have taken Charbonnet.
I probably would have too. Now that's not even an argument. But yeah, it really sucks if you're in on Charbonnet because I think that really craps all over his value. He's not going to be, I mean, we compared him to James Conner. That's not going to happen unless Kenneth Walker gets hurt. So I don't know. I think I can see a very distinct possibility where they just liked Charbonnet and took him to be a complement piece rather than being a heavily involved 1B. I could totally see them doing that.
I think, and you tell me what you think. I think it's going to be, obviously it's going to be very split. I think Kenneth Walker probably leads a 60-40 split, maybe, something like that.
Yeah. And it's who's going to get the goal line. You kind of think like an Aaron Jones, AJ Dillon sort of combination, you know they're going to run the ball a ton. The problem is
For a bigger back, I think Charbonnet is the better receiver of the two.
he is, and I think that's part of why they took him. They view him as somebody they can put in on third down. He's a good pass blocker too. So Kenneth Walker, I mean, he never gave you fantasy points as a pass catcher though, and so I don't know how
he
much
had one
I
game
should
where he had
tilt.
6 catches. That was it.
Right. Like, I don't know how much I need to tilt on him because all his production came off of like him ripping huge runs and scoring touchdowns, which
I mean, I don't think that's going to stop either.
Yeah. I mean, I do think he's going to get a lot of big runs, but instead of getting 20 carries a game, he might get like 15, which is a bummer, but he can still deliver fantasy value on 15 carries.
Yeah. But in that same sentence, he has to rip big runs and he has to score touchdowns. He can't like Alvin Kamara could have 15 touches a game and get you 16, 17 points because 9 of those touches were receptions.
Right.
Whereas Walker's not going to catch passes, so he's got to have 15 carries, either 120 yards or he's got to have 15 carries, 80 yards and a touchdown.
Right. So it's going to be a little bit brutal. It's going to make Kenneth Walker very
much more boom or bust.
Yeah. Yep. All right.
So why don't at the same time? Okay, let's go. Let's talk about the rookies themselves.
All right, quarterbacks.
We felt their impact. Now they're here.
Yeah. So Bryce Young goes number 1 to the Carolina Panthers. Yeah, not surprising at all. I think the quick summary of this is I don't see him being a top 20 quarterback in year 1. I don't see him being a top 20 quarterback year 1 because I don't know how much he's going to run, and those weapons around him need to develop a bit more. He's probably going to throw for 3,500 yards and maybe 20 touchdowns year 1. He's going to show flashes.
I can see him hitting the QB2 range year 1.
I could see it, but I don't know. I don't know how stoked about that for year 1 I am. Now, for his future, I do think 4,000 yards, 30-plus touchdowns passing is very much in the realm of possibilities for him.
Yeah, I'm not a great quarterback evaluator. Obviously, I'm doing this podcast, but everyone that I listen to, they all love Bryce Young. The only thing they're worried about, obviously, is his size, but that's been the concern the whole time. The Panthers are heavily invested. They paid a ton to go get him, which means, that tells me they fully believe in Bryce Young. So if they fully believe in Bryce Young that much, then so do I.
Yeah.
They're going to put pieces around him. It's kind of bleak right now, so I agree with you. Year 1 can kind of be hit or miss, but moving forward, I think they'll be fine. They're going to add stuff. And I think Frank Reich will be a good, he's a quarterback whisperer, that guy. He's going to get the most possible out of Bryce Young. And I'm not worried about his arm strength. I think the arm strength is fine. He processes the game on the mental level as good as anyone. So Bryce Young, probably a low-end QB2 year 1, but is he a top 12 dynasty quarterback right now?
No,
he's close.
He's close, but he's not there for me yet. Yeah, CJ Stroud at 2. I think it's a similar situation with a bit more
Texans
upside.
Gaslighted everybody on this one.
They did. They did a great job not letting anybody think they were going to take CJ Stroud. There's a misnomer out there. So they traded up for Will Anderson. They did use their first-round pick next year to do that. Everybody thinks they don't have a first-round pick next year. They've still got Cleveland's pick.
They have a ton of draft capital.
They got a crap load of picks. So they can still draft weapons. The problem is year 1, the weapons, like we said, Carolina's weapons aren't good. Houston's weapons are worse. They're bad.
Yeah, I was initially
he's
excited because when they took Stroud, I was like, they're 100% taking Jackson Smith and Jigba with their 12th pick. There's no way they don't. And then they traded that pick to go get Will Anderson.
Yeah.
So that hurt Stroud for me a little bit because who does he have there? Is Brandon Cook still there? No, they traded him, didn't they?
No, he's got Robert Woods, he's got Nico Collins, and he's got John Mechie.
That's not good.
That's not great. Well, they do have Dalton Schultz, but he's a tight end.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Weapons are not ideal. It's Devin
But
Singletary and Damian Pierce in the backfield. So that's not great either.
same argument though for Bryce Young. They took him at 2,
Yep.
which means they believe in him. So if they believe in him for fantasy, I believe in him.
Yeah,
A lot of
he will
people
at
had
least
him as
get a
their
long leash.
QB1 anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I can see him also being productive. Again, questions about rushing floor are there with him because he just didn't run the ball a ton in college, but he showed flashes.
It's the same. I think the same thing for him and Bryce Young. Like people said they don't run. Like they have the athleticism to run. They just really didn't have to at Alabama and Ohio State.
Yeah.
So I think when it breaks down, like they will have a rushing floor in the league. It won't be Anthony Richardson, who we'll talk about in a second, but it'll be. It doesn't scare me off of him.
Yeah. Why don't we hop into him? Anthony Richardson goes at 4 to the Indianapolis Colts. This was awesome because I thought they were going to take Levis, and I hoped to God they would not take Will Levis.
I thought they would take Levis too.
Richardson he's so exciting. He is very raw. He needs to develop, but I think he went to a situation where he could. I don't know, but I think the 4th pick tells me he's gonna play year 1. I just don't know how much.
And they fully, if you taking him at 4, they believe in him. Steichen this is his building block, and they have Gardner Minshew, which I think Gardner Minshew is a very serviceable quarterback. Yep. So that's why I don't know if he plays much in he'll get time, obviously, but I don't think he plays much. But yeah, I mean I feel like that's an organization I feel confident them building around him. They're pretty well run. They've already got good pieces there now. They've got a great offensive line. Even if he has to play one, they have Jonathan Taylor, and you just give the ball to him 30 times. You don't even have to let Richardson throw it that much. And if he does have to throw it, Michael Pittman's there. And I like Michael Pittman.
Josh Downs. They drafted him as well.
They took Josh Downs too. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a guy that slid. That's a really solid slot receiver. So I think that helps a lot as well. Richardson, I mean,
he only played 13 college games.
He did.
He's very much a la Trey Lance coming into this.
Mitchell Trubisky kind of thing, where there's just not a lot of college film on him.
So you really need him to not play much year 1.
You do, but I think there's a few things in his favor, right? You've got Shane Steichen, who coached Justin Herbert his rookie year. He coached Jalen Hurts the last 2 years.
Oh yeah, he knows how to get a lot out of his quarterbacks.
He does. And he also coached Phillip Rivers for a while with the Chargers. So,
and like on Justin Herbert's level, like people had a lot of questions about him coming in there, the same as Anthony Richardson.
Right.
So if Steichen believes that he can get a lot out of him, then
he has been 2 for 2 with his last 2 attempts to make a quarterback good. So,
and both of them had questions, and Jalen Hurts is about the same player as Anthony Richardson.
Yeah. I mean, Hurts is probably a little bit more polished, but man, Richardson.
Yeah, he had more experience in college, better coaches in college, but
yes. So it'll be interesting to see how it pans out. I do think the minute he steps on the field, he might suck as a real life quarterback, but he's probably going to be pretty good for fantasy.
Like worst case scenario, when he starts, he's top 10. That's worst case scenario.
That's not worst case scenario because like Justin Fields, his first year was like 14 points per game, and he was like QB 18 or something. So
yeah,
like,
I guess that's fair.
That's not the worst. The worst case
I like
scenario
Anthony Richardson a lot.
Really awful. Anthony Richardson's exciting.
I like him for fantasy. I don't know about it for real life, but I love Anthony Richardson for fantasy.
He's quite exciting. Will Levis goes with the 2nd pick in the 2nd round to the Tennessee Titans. Yeah, no,
Titans have 3 mid quarterbacks. They're having a mid off for quarterbacks.
I'm not a believer in Will Levis. I think we have said it. If you've been listening to the show, you realize, you already know, Will Levis, we're not super stoked about him. I don't think he went to a bad situation, but I also don't think he went to a great one either. And I just don't believe in him as a player. So I'm not going to buy into the fact that
if he had gone top 10, I'd buy into it because obviously somebody saw something that they liked. But the fact that he fell this far, the Titans traded up to get him in the 2nd round, which, I mean, there's been good 2nd round quarterbacks in the past.
Yep.
He's got the physical tools. He has a rushing floor too if he ends up starting. But he's very raw, and I don't see the Tennessee Titans as a team that are going to polish him up to be a good player.
Yeah. Last one, Hendon Hooker goes to the Detroit Lions, the top of
I
the
actually like
third
this.
round. This one is exciting
I like
because
this.
he gets to, there's no pressure for him to start year one. He probably couldn't even anyway because of the ACL. It's a great situation. Jared Goff is there for him to kind of learn under.
You want to talk about having weapons around him.
Yeah. I mean, Jamison Williams, when he gets his head out of his butt, Amon-Ra St. Brown, running backs for days, like we talked about. They also took a tight end, Sam Laporta, who I think is going to be pretty solid. So there's a lot there. And that offensive line is incredible. A great offensive line. So that's what you want to be as a rookie. It's just a matter of can he show good things in practice to get the trust of the team in order to get on the field? Because if not, they'll just keep rolling with Jared Goff.
Yeah. I mean, Jared Goff, I don't think Hendon Hooker sees the field at all year one, and I don't even want him to because I think Jared Goff is going to be fine right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as questionable as the Gibbs pick was, I think the Lions are going to be really good. I think they might win that division, honestly.
Yeah, they probably will. I would bet on them.
I mean, I don't have confidence in the Vikings at all, even though I do. We'll talk about him later. I do like their first round pick.
Yep.
I don't think they do a whole lot.
Let's jump to running backs. We have in the first round, Bijan and Jahmyr Gibbs go both in the top 15, which is fantastic.
Did not see that coming.
I didn't either. I thought neither would go before 20, and they both went.
Both of these running backs, it was like I screamed at my TV no at each pick because I wanted Atlanta to take Jalen Carter. We need the linemen. We need linemen in a massive, massive way. We need linemen and quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's not even that I have shares of Algier, but obviously I don't have a ton invested in it, but I like him. And I think he's fine. Like, we're not going to be a bad running attack with Tyler Algier as the lead back. And I'm not saying any of this to take away from Bijan because Bijan Robinson is 1,000% going to be a game changer on the field. There is not a running back in the league that, with the exception of maybe Taylor and Barkley, that can do what he can do on the field. He's going to, aside from injuries, the dude is going to have like 1,500 yards plus this year.
Yeah. Yep.
He's going to be a wrecker.
And y'all's offensive line, like for all the stuff you need, your offensive line is pretty good.
Yeah, we have a really good offensive line. We have no quarterback.
No.
This is bad for Kyle Pitts and Drake London too, because this means the Falcons are going to super run the ball. So if you thought that we didn't throw the ball last year, it's going to be more of the same this year.
Yeah, you're going to run the ball a ton. They're going to give 300 plus touches to Bijan.
Kyle Pitts could have a 60% target share this year and have 45 targets.
Yeah, pretty much. They're basically gearing up for whichever quarterback they eventually do get. He's going to have so many shiny toys.
But the problem is we're never going to have a draft pick high enough to do it. Like, we're going to be just mid for the next year. Like, Bijan is going to help our team win, but it's not going to help us win 12, 11 games and win the division.
Right.
So we're going to finish like 8-9, 9-8 every year.
There will come a point. I mean, the Panthers were sort of in the same boat where they were never going to be bad enough to get the number one pick, but then they went and got the number one pick.
Never good enough to win the division.
Right. So there will come a point where they've had enough of just kind of being on the quarterback carousel, and they're going to go get somebody. But I don't know. I don't know if it'll end up being because they're so bad that they luck into a good pick or if they have to trade up for one. But
from a team building standpoint aside, as a Falcons fan aside, I am excited to have Bijan on the team. Like, he's going to be so much fun to watch. And this, like, I've seen some people in forums where, like, they were mad. Like, see, I told you not to trade everything for Bijan. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this was the destination for a running back to land. Like, this was the ideal spot. He could not have had a better landing spot.
No, he could not have. I mean, because volume is going to be insane. They're going to run the ball a ton, and they're probably going to throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, they're not going to throw the ball a lot. So, but Arthur Smith knows how to use running backs. Like, he's going to be good. He's going to score touchdowns, and he's going to rush for yards. Like, a lot of them.
and he's going to get a lot of targets because it's not like because they have Algier, they can put Algier in the backfield and line Bijan up in the slot if they wanted to, and have Pitts, London, and Bijan as your receivers. That's probably better. I mean, he's probably a better slot receiver they had on their roster.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, obviously Algier is just a handcuff these days, but Algier is still going to have a role because we're going to run the ball that much.
Yes. You're going to run the ball dang near 500 times.
Yeah.
So he's going to have a role still. It's just going to be incredibly diminished. He's probably going to average like 6 or 7 fantasy points a game, which is terrible.
I mean, there's a world where he has like, I think he could have, just because of how much we'll run the ball, he could have 500-600 yards, 6 touchdowns, something like that.
Potentially.
Yeah.
There is also Cordero Patterson as well to factor in.
But he's like 34 years old.
I know, but he'll get a couple of touches.
Yeah.
He'll
be enough. Before he gets hurt, he'll piss Bijan owners off just enough.
Probably. We talked about Jahmyr Gibbs and Zach Charbonnet. Gibbs goes at the 112.
We didn't talk as much about Gibbs, though. We talked about more the impact.
Okay.
And I think Gibbs he's top 15 this year because you don't draft him that high and not use him. Like, the dude is going to get touches.
I'm going to pull up my projections
Montgomery,
for Gibbs.
Montgomery will outcarry him because Gibbs is not built to handle that load. But that offense is so good, and he is such a good receiving back that he's going to be electric when he gets the ball, and he's going to get the ball in space and in like high-scoring opportunity roles.
Yeah. I've currently got him projected for, what is that, 1,300 total all-purpose yards and 11 touchdowns. So for me, in half PPR, that comes out to 14.9 fantasy points per game, which
could be
a top
prime. I mean, prime Alvin Kamara role right out of the gate.
Yeah. That's I don't have him as a 1,000-yard rusher. I've got him at like 850 yards rushing, but like 600 receiving.
Yeah, I think there's no world where I think he gets enough just carries to have 1,000 yards rushing, but he will have over 1,000 total yards.
Yes,
because he could have 90 carries and 90 receptions.
Yeah.
That's how good he is.
Yeah. And I do think that David Montgomery will be interesting. I have him projected
he
for
will be
over
the primary
total yards
ball
as well.
carrier, quote unquote.
Yes. And probably the primary goal line back too. If there
Gibbs
is
will be
such
the
a thing.
lightning to his thunder.
Yeah. But Gibbs will just get
But Gibbs'
so
lightning
much
is that
pass
good
catching.
that he's going to be better for fantasy than
Right. He's going to be very, very good for fantasy without maybe having as many touches. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Okay. The new RB3 in the class for me it's no longer Charbonnet. It's Kendre Miller, who was taken to the top of the 3rd round by the New Orleans Saints. I think he's very intriguing. He was somebody that I liked on tape when we were doing the draft kit, looking at all these running backs. Kendre Miller was a guy that I liked, but I had no clue where he would go in the draft. I didn't know if he would go in the 3rd round or the 5th round. And
I thought it was going to be 5th round.
I
didn't think he'd be this high.
I had a feeling it would be later. But like as a pure runner, he doesn't really offer you much as a pass catcher. But as a pure runner, the dude is electric. He averaged like 6.5 yards a carry at TCU. He was so good as just a pure rusher. I mean, Zach Evans transferred because Kendre Miller took his job.
Yeah.
So he's a really good player. And I think he's going into a situation where he's going to get the chance the first probably 4-6 weeks or so to be a bell cow. And then Alvin Kamara will come back from whatever suspension he likely gets. And I can see Alvin Kamara being the 3rd down guy and Kendre Miller stealing a lot on 1st and 2nd down. And
Jamal Williams is still there now.
He is. But frankly, I mean, it's Jamal Williams' 3rd team. I know he's beloved in the NFL, but top of the 3rd round draft capital is enough for me to believe that what the guy I saw in film, which was a really talented player, I just didn't know where he would go. The situation being one where he's probably going to get pretty decent amount of work early on. And then just like the lack of stud other players around him, I have a feeling Kendre Miller could be pretty interesting.
Yeah. And I also like Devon Achane, where he landed.
Mhm.
Obviously, Devon Achane, there's no world at all where he's ever a bell cow running back. But Miami needs a running back, and they got one, and he fits everything that they seem to be want to be doing. They have 3, 4, 5 guys on their starting offensive lineup that run sub 4-3. Waddle, Tyreek, Raheem Mostert, and now Devon Achane. All of them just lightning rods on the field. So he's not going to have that many touches, but in the system he's in, I think he can be very productive and sneaky good for fantasy.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's like remember what
Miami
Tariq Cohen
to
was
me
a
was
few
like
years
one of the
ago, but,
destination
better.
running backs, destination landing spots for a running back this year. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted you.
No. I mean, you're right. That's a very good spot, and I don't think Achane will get more than 15 touches a week. He's probably like a 10 to 12 touch a week guy, but like really high value touches in those 10 to 12. So, I could see him getting. It might even be more than 10, 12. It might be the kind of player that gets like 10 carries a week and 4 catches, 5 catches. But any one of those could be a massive play because he's a lightning in a bottle kind of guy.
And I'm not saying to go all in on him either for fantasy, but I mean, obviously, I love the landing spot. I like him as a talent. The size is obviously a question, but I love what he can do on the field and in that system.
Yeah. Rounding out the third round, the other guys worth a mention. Tyjae Spears goes mid third round to the Titans. I personally am not wowed by that landing spot. I mean, Derrick Henry's still there. Obviously, Derrick Henry's old, but Spears doesn't profile as a 3-down back. To me personally, I know some people think he does. I'm kind of lukewarm on him. And then Tank Bigsby goes at the end of the third round.
It doesn't help that it's a Titans offense that is descending right now. Like once Henry is gone, I think that team completely rips everything apart and starts from the ground up.
Yeah. And then Tank Bigsby goes to Jacksonville, which is obviously not ideal because
not what I wanted for him.
Etienne's there.
I was really hoping he would go to either the Bills or the Bengals.
Yeah, that would have been.
I mean, obviously you can say that for any running back, but I knew they both needed one, and I thought in the third round he would fall there and one of them would take him.
Yeah, he's kind of like a Latavius Murray kind of guy. He's probably going to hang around the NFL because I don't think he's bad, and he's going to be a good rotational
he's gonna
guy.
Be one of those guys who like comes in and when a starter's hurt is like super good for 3-4 games a year, and
yep. But he's never the starter.
Yeah.
So wide receivers, there's a lot of good stuff here. Seattle took Jackson Smith and Jigba.
It's not what I wanted. But to be fair, I don't mind it. But to be fair, I was the entire draft, like I wanted him to go to the Chargers, and he kept falling and falling and falling. I'm like, dude, I know it's not going to happen, but he could go to the Chargers. And then he falls to there. I'm like, oh my God, he's going to go to the Chargers. It's going to happen. I'm taking him over Bijan in rookie drafts. Like, obviously not. That's crazy. But just, I love Justin Herbert. I'm like, he is going to be so good with the Chargers. And this is the third time I just screamed at my TV no, because I like Jackson Smith. No, because the Chargers were the next pick. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah. But I mean, the Chargers would have been better. It's a
decent landing spot. It's not a bad spot at all.
Yeah. The Chargers is probably going to be his best landing spot. But I mean, Seattle's still like really solid. He is my belief that he is a 90 to potentially 100 catch player has not diminished by him going to Seattle. I do think
this is another
it
one
won't happen immediately, but it could happen.
You're just betting on the talent. Like I do not understand the people who are low on Jackson Smith and Jigba from a player's point. The dude is phenomenal. He's not the people who are low on me are only low because he's a burner. He's never been not a burner. He's never been a burner. He's never going to be a burner. That's not what he does. He's a slot receiver who can play on the outside. He is an elite separator, and I mean elite quickness. He can get open on anybody. I'm not worried about that. He's going to dominate from the slot. Tyler Lockett's going to be a problem year one, but I don't think he'll be on the team next year.
I sort of look at it the other way around. I think Njigba is going to be a problem for Lockett.
Yeah, I think at least for the start, because Seattle, and the fact that they drafted Charbonnet is another problem, which means they're going to be very, very heavy run oriented. And I think for the first part, when they're running two wide receiver sets, it'll be DK and Lockett.
Yeah.
But when it's three wide receiver sets, I mean, Njigba's going to dominate, man.
Yeah, I think he's going to be really, really solid. I don't know if I have the stones to project it, but I think he's going to be close to 90 catches his rookie year.
Yeah. I mean, just the role he plays with that slot guy, he operates over the middle and he has a rare ability to get open that not many guys can do. Like it's
different.
It's maybe blasphemy, but like Justin Jefferson ability to just get open.
Yeah. Yeah. Quentin Johnston goes to the Holy Land, ends up on the Chargers, one pick later.
I was very mad at first about this.
Yeah.
I was extremely mad because I wanted to take Zay Flowers. I'm like, oh, because that's not what they need. Like they have Mike Williams.
Any of the other three receivers that went in the first
Addison,
round.
Zay Flowers, anybody, not Johnston.
Yeah. But in the end,
yeah, go ahead.
It's a great landing spot. He's tied to a Hall of Fame quarterback.
This was the ideal wide receiver landing spot for the draft of anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm not in love with Johnston as a prospect.
No, my questions about him beforehand were still there. Like, I don't think he has good footwork. He doesn't get open. He's not as fast as I thought he was. He only ran a 4.52. I really thought he was going to be mid to low 4.4. And he does not catch with his hand. He's a body catcher. But, I mean, maybe Kellen Moore and those guys can get that out of him. Because, to be fair, at TCU, he didn't really have to catch with his hands because he didn't play against great competition. He was kind of just open all the time. So,
yeah.
But I had him really low, but I'm gonna have to move him up my rankings, same as you, because it's the Chargers. Like, that was the landing spot.
Yeah. So, I mean, year one, he's going to have a lot more impact than if he would have gone somewhere else. And we have talked about the negatives a lot with him, but there are some positives.
Yeah, I mean,
it's really great after the catch.
Yeah,
really, really great after the catch. But it's getting the ball to him. That part seemed difficult at times. Like getting him the ball in his hands where he can run afterward. That part seemed difficult. But once he got the ball, he's really good.
That's where all the problems in his game come in. Is he doesn't get open that well, and he doesn't make contested catches that well. Yeah.
But once he has the ball, he's phenomenal. And I do think with Keenan Allen there, with Mike Williams there, year one, there's not going to be pressure.
He's got room to develop. Like, it's not going to be, I need you to get open year one. No, Mike Williams and Keenan got that. You go on the slot outside wherever you need to here and there in games, and I
think they'll scheme him more touches. So I think he's going to be fine. I'm not
great for Justin Herbert to have another weapon.
Yeah, he's going to be a solid end of first round rookie pick in Superflex, mid first round, and one quarterback. He's going to be fine. Zay Flowers goes a pick after that to the Ravens.
These last two picks hurt me because that's not who I wanted the Chargers to take. And then this is like bad news for Zay Flowers going to Baltimore. Even though I think, I agree with you, Baltimore's going to throw more. They still got Mark Andrews is still the one.
Yep.
And they got Odell.
Yeah. And Rashad Bateman is something.
He's alive.
I'll give him that. I do think I want to float this out and see how you feel about it. I think there's a possibility Zay Flowers ends up being the second pass catcher in the offense year one. I don't know how likely it is, but I think it's very possible. Mark Andrews is the one. Zay Flowers ends up being the two.
Yeah, I mean, they have Odell, but I don't think Odell is that. He's not that guy anymore.
They did pay him $15 million.
Yeah, and they overpaid him. I mean, Odell he might give you 4 good games this year.
Yeah.
Before he gets hurt.
Potentially. I don't really know what to expect out of Odell, I'll be totally honest with you. I do know in the scout process, Zay Flowers, he was, without the benefit of landing spots, he was pushing my wide receiver too. Like it was him and Jordan Addison. Yeah, he is.
And kind of like, not to the level of JSN, but the dude can get open. He's got juice and he can get open.
Yeah, and I
mean, I agree with you to that point. Like he could be the 2 in Baltimore just because of that. Like he's gonna end up a favorite target of Lamar.
I agree, and I think I don't think he's exclusively a slot either. I think he can play outside. I've heard, and this sounds blasphemous, I know, but I've heard Antonio Brown comparisons to Zay Flowers' game. That's like what he
And
could
speaking of
develop
that,
into.
did Antonio Brown, do we ever hear if that's legit that he's signing with the Ravens?
That's not legit.
It's not?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, that's not legit.
Okay.
That was one of those where he said, I'm signing with the Ravens. And the Ravens were like,
Antonio
what?
Brown has agreed to terms with the Ravens. Unfortunately, the Ravens did not agree to terms with Antonio Brown.
Right. That's exactly what that was. So yeah, Zay Flowers is exciting. And, all the stuff I said about Lamar applies here. I think Zay Flowers people might avoid him because of what they perceive the offense to be. I don't necessarily think the perception of the offense is the truth going forward. So yeah, Zay Flowers is still really interesting for me. But maybe the biggest winner or riser in the wide receivers taken in the first round was Jordan Addison going to the Vikings, which is talent plus ideal landing spot. To me, he's set up to be really good.
Yeah. He's not going to be the one there. He's never going to be the one there. However, we've seen the two in Minnesota be very good many, many times.
We have also seen several times recently where the two on an offense is still a fringe top 12 wide receiver or even a top 12 wide receiver if they throw the ball a lot, which
Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, when they were there, Julio and Calvin Ridley,
Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, T. Higgins,
Smith,
Jamar
Brown,
Chase,
Tyler, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill, like all those guys.
So
now, granted, they have elite quarterback play, and Kirk is very good.
Kirk provides fantasy value. Kirk himself is not elite, but he provides fantasy value. This is great for the Vikings offense as a whole. It's great for Justin Jefferson.
I've seen some people say it's bad for Justin Jefferson because I don't think it is. Jefferson is still the one. Yes. He's still the one overall. He's the best receiver in the league right now.
Yes.
But now he's not going to be triple covered every play.
You're not going to have those games when their whole offense gets shut down and he has 2 for 12. That will not happen with Jordan Addison.
And then
because
don't forget that TJ Hawkinson is still there too, and he's an elite tight end.
Yes. So, yeah, this is a great landing spot. And I think Jordan Addison, for what will be needed of him in Minnesota, he's going to be incredibly effective. Like, he wasn't going to work everywhere, but I think he would work there. Yeah. So
I think no, go ahead. We'll talk about this team probably in a little bit here.
There's obviously receivers are taken in the second and third round. We don't need to talk about every single one of them. I think if you want to pull out players that are interesting, I know for me, Jonathan Mingo was taken by Carolina at the top of the second round. That's incredibly interesting. He's going to be tied to Bryce Young. He got really good draft capital. I don't know how good he is. I didn't scout him a ton. I'll be honest. I've watched a little bit of him and he was fine. He could develop into something nice, but you've got measurably, he's incredible. It's just that his production on the field wasn't fantastic. But he's going to have a good quarterback, albeit maybe not year one, going into a good situation. He's got great draft capital. Top of the second round is really solid for a receiver. And the team gave up a lot of picks, so it's not like they're going to go draft a first-round receiver next year or even a second-round receiver next year because they just don't have the picks to do so unless they, finesse something and trade up. So, yeah, Mingo probably is not the wide receiver one immediately, but he could be. Yeah. And, I don't think we know how good he could be per se, but I think his floor is going to be pretty safe considering the team's invested in him and he's going to have a good quarterback throwing in balls. So, yep. He's at least interesting for me.
I'm really interested in Jalen Hyatt. He went to the Giants. The Giants, honestly, I wanted Njigba or Flowers to go there because I think that's a pretty good landing spot. And I think Jalen Hyatt can kind of have an immediate impact for the Giants because he's a field-stretching wide receiver, but it's also a team that has a lot of targets wide open. So while I don't know, it was a big red flag on Hyatt's profile coming out of college is, he doesn't have a super wide route tree. He's fast, but overall his talent, he's good. He's a very good wide receiver, but the talent had some questions here and there. They're holes in his game. But I think Giants are a place where he can succeed and have an immediate impact.
Yeah, I hate Jalen Hyatt as a prospect, but some of that was predicated on the fact that he was projected to go late first round or in the second round. He got taken in the third round, which is, I think, a lot more like where he was drafted was how I perceived him as like the 10th best wide receiver in the class.
And he went to a team with a lot of targets wide open, but a team that clearly believes in Daniel Jones, and they're actively putting pieces around Daniel Jones for him to succeed.
Yeah. So I don't know. I won't draft Jalen Hyatt anywhere. I'll put it that way. I'm not getting him anywhere. In rookie drafts, in startup drafts, nothing. I won't draft him at all. I need to see it before I'm willing to
That's
buy
very
into
stubborn
him.
of you, Josh.
It is, but I did not like him as a prospect. I did not.
Like, he's
think
there in
he
the
was that
third
good.
round. You're not going to take him?
In a rookie draft?
You would let him go to waivers.
Yeah, I would. There's guys that will be there in the third round that I'd rather take. Like, for example, Jaden Reed, who was drafted by the Packers in the mid-second. I think he is a better route runner.
I feel like at that point, though, Jaden Reed, and I'm not saying Jaden Reed's bad. I agree with you. He's pretty good. But, like, the situation, I think, is better for Hyatt.
I think it's better real life than it is for fantasy. I think Jaden Reed could earn more targets than Jalen Hyatt would. I don't see Hyatt earning.
Christian Watson's there, too, whereas Hyatt, and I'm not saying he's going to be like a dominant wide receiver one or anything, but the wide receiver one role is open in New York, whereas I don't think it is in Green Bay.
The pass catcher one role in New York
is
not open.
I know that's Darren Waller, but
the wide receiver one role is.
It's like Baltimore. Like the wide receiver one role is open, but the pass catcher is Mark Andrews. Like,
yes. So, I mean, you're right. In that sense, both could be the pass catcher number 2 for their teams. I just personally believe Jaden Reed's a better player, and I am changing how I view wide receivers. I don't really look at landing spot as much anymore. Obviously, if it's terrible, it's a red flag. But like, I sort of do all the work beforehand, look into the receivers, watch them on film, scout them, figure out if they're good or not. And if I think they're good and they don't go to a horrific landing spot, I'm much more likely to take the player that I think is good with a fine to average landing spot than the guy that I didn't like as much in the scout process that went to a great landing spot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So
that's fair.
So like some people think Njigba is not the wide receiver one anymore because they don't view Seattle as a great landing spot. Njigba is still the best receiver to me. Those people are stupid. Quentin Johnston going to the Chargers is perceived as the best landing spot, but I would still rather have Jordan Addison than Quentin Johnston. And you can argue Zay Flowers.
I may rather have Zay Flowers over him, honestly.
Yeah, and that's just due to me, like, Johnston for me was like the 4th best receiver. And even though he went to a great landing spot, like, I don't know if the talent is going to shine through even though he went to a great landing spot. So that sort of applies to all the other receivers as well. Maybe the only exception is Mingo, because I didn't super love him in the scout process, but I could see where you would like him. But it's just, he's tied to a good quarterback. He's got really good draft capital. That's enough that, like, he can develop into something. He didn't necessarily seem bad on tape, but
yeah. And
anyway.
we've forgotten that Kayshon Boutte is still up there with the top end wide receivers.
Yeah, except he's not been drafted yet.
Shut up.
Remember what I said last week or 2 weeks ago that he was not going to go in the first 3 rounds, and you were like, I don't know. I was like,
no, Josh, I believed you. I'm being stubborn like you. You hate Jalen Hyatt, and I love Kayshon Boutte.
Would you take Kayshon Boutte in the 3rd round rookie draft if he goes in the 5th round?
I'll take him late.
You'll take him late with a flyer.
Yeah.
Well, I've got the 309.
That's just like a belief. Like, it's a 3rd round shot. I've believed in him, and I'm going to stick to my dang guns. I'd take him in the 3rd round.
You know what's going to happen? I've got the 309 in one of our shared leagues, and I'm going to take Kayshon Boutte just to F with you.
I mean, I'm not going to trade you for him.
I know you won't. You won't give me anything for him. Tight ends. Let's run through these real fast. Dalton Kincaid, the only one taken in the 1st round, goes to Buffalo.
Great spot. Great for Josh Allen. My
Yes.
boy needs some help over there in Buffalo.
He does have some good weapons, but Dalton Kincaid, I think, it's a big help. I refuse to take tight ends in the first round of rookie drafts.
Oh no, but it takes so long for them to develop. Like I'm not going to spend a first round pick on someone,
Yeah.
even if they're good. I'm not going to see value for 2-3 years down the road.
Yeah, I mean, I took Kyle Pitts, and
Kyle Pitts is different, man.
He was different, and he's still not been good yet.
Yeah,
like he was the generational prospects at tight end, and he 2 years in has still not returned that value yet. When
he was when he was drafted, and still to this point is by far the best, most gifted tight end in the league. Right. It's not even close.
He's the most gifted tight end in the league, and he's still not good for fantasy. It's just tight ends.
That's not his fault, though.
It's not. It's not his fault, but it's just that the tight end position stinks. It's so gross. So while I think Dalton Kincaid is awesome and he went to a great spot, he's a tight end.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I would spend assuming you don't have gaping holes in your roster, I'd spend a high second round pick on him, like 203, 204, something like that.
I'd consider it early second round. I don't know if I could do it because there's still probably,
like I said, assuming your roster doesn't have gaping holes and like you can afford to stash him, I would.
Yeah. Yeah. So Kincaid is very exciting, and I think it's because of the perception. People thought Michael Mayer would be the first one taken. He was not. And Dalton Kincaid
he wasn't
first round
the second one taken.
He was not, because Sam Laporta went.
That surprised me. I'm like, Mayer's still there. I thought Cincinnati was going to take him. Like, Mayer there, since he's going to take him, he's going to be great.
Yeah. I think it probably speaks volumes that Sam Laporta went to Detroit with the third pick in the second round. Yeah, I mean, Laporta was good, but I didn't think he would go in the top of the second round.
I thought it'd be great if when they did that, I thought it was crazy. I'm like, well, Mayer would have been a great replacement for Hawkinson to have in Detroit. I don't know why they didn't do that, but
I guess they like Laporta better.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's an Iowa tight end. Iowa tight ends always seem to be good. But also,
I guess that's what the difference was, because so was Hawkinson was Iowa too, wasn't he?
Yep. And George.
So they're like, we can't take Mayer. We got to have another Iowa boy.
Yeah, but I mean, Notre Dame tight ends are good too. Like, they've got Cole Kmet. They had was it Kyle Rudolph was a Notre Dame tight end? There's another one. Zach Ertz was Stanford. He wasn't Notre Dame. I don't know. There's another one out there I can't think of, but
wasn't Goddard, was it?
No, he went to. I remember he went to an FCS school. He went to like South Dakota State or something.
I don't remember him.
Anyways, Laporta and Mayer, I viewed Mayer higher. I
think Mayer's a better
Laporta's. Talent. I think he probably is a little bit better talent wise, but I think Laporta's pretty similar in that, like, in limited offenses for more than one season, both of them were the main target getter. Like, we forget Iowa's offense is a joke how bad it was for more than one season, but like Sam Laporta was still really good. So in a similar sense, Michael Mayer played on a limited Notre Dame offense, and for 2 years was their leading target getter. So that is worth something. And they did both go to situations that need a tight end, so they'll probably contribute early. But still, they're tight ends. I don't expect a ton. But that said, I do think that those are interesting.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I could see, obviously, I think Kincaid will be the best tight end in the long run just because of where he went. But I could see Mayer and Laporta outproducing him for the first couple of years.
Yeah, I could see
just
that.
Just because, I mean, Dawson Knox is a good enough tight end, and the Bills have him on under contract to where they're going to still utilize him. And when it's not, other than Stephon Diggs, Josh Allen can be a little erratic with the rest of his targets. Mm-hmm. So we'll see. But, I mean, obviously, I think he'll be best in the long run.
Yeah. Last couple guys I think worth mentioning. You got Luke Musgrave goes to the Packers, who didn't need a tight end. He was somebody that I noted in the scout process as somebody that could be really interesting. He had a ridiculous raw athletic score. And he's got a limited sample size because of injury, but in that limited sample size, he was a really, really productive tight end for Oregon State. So if you box score Hunt, he's great. But if you look at like his career stats, it's like, why the crap did this dude get taken in the second round? He's got a few games in there that is just like, this is ridiculous. Like 120 yards from your tight end.
Yeah, it's different when people are taking tight ends.
Yes. It's
like
just a little bit different.
Kincaid didn't have that big of a pedigree either, like that much behind him.
Yeah.
And he went in the first round.
Yep. Let's see here. Darnell Washington was drafted at the end of the third round by Pittsburgh.
I wonder how Jake feels about this. I haven't asked him.
I don't know. I'd be curious too, because when you take a guy that late, to me, it doesn't signify that you think he's going to be a weapon offensively. I don't
know about him either.
Yeah, I don't know how much he's going to contribute in the passing game. I think he is more of a run blocking tight end, which he's going to be incredible at. I feel like he
looks like Kyle Pitts. Not nearly as good, but he looks like him.
He's bigger than Kyle Pitts. He's,
Yeah, Kyle Pitts is 6'6", 250, and this dude is bigger than him.
Yeah, he's like 6'8", 265 or something.
He's an offensive frightening individual.
He's gigantor. That's what he is. So I don't know. End of third round to me is not very exciting for Darnell Washington.
No, but I mean, this is not me expecting anything out of him. This is more me trying to just be optimistic about him. They need weapons in Pittsburgh. I don't believe in Deontay Johnson per se. I do like I'm completely blanking on who their receiver is.
They got George Pickens.
Good one. George Pickens, yeah.
The good one.
And they got Freiermuth.
Yeah.
And I really like Freiermuth, and I like Freiermuth. I think he's very good. He's very established at this point.
Yeah.
But I mean, just with his raw athleticism, there could be flash games for him.
Yeah. That about wraps things up. Is there anybody else you kind of want to highlight before we get out of here?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. Maybe keep an eye on Josh Downs with Indianapolis. But
I was just looking at Josh Downs' name. Like I think we mentioned him though.
We mentioned him, but we didn't really get into him. He's interesting.
One more question I think I have. I'm just curious to see where you think. I know where I had Zach Charbonnet in like my overall dynasty rankings. Who do you think he falls behind at this point?
Like overall dynasty rankings or just rookie rankings?
Overall dynasty rankings and Walker for that matter. Who jumps?
Where'd you have Charbonnet prior to the draft? Where do you have him now, roughly?
I had him in like the like not far, like Cam Akers.
Okay.
Not far behind ETN and those guys. I thought he was in that range.
Yeah.
And I had Walker probably as my RB3 in Dynasty. Yeah. And obviously he falls down in those rankings as does Charbonnet. I'm just curious where in your head he falls.
So Walker to me is still top 10, but definitely not 3.
Does he fall behind? I mean, obviously McCaffrey jumps him. Some people had Taylor behind him, which, I mean, I'm not going to argue. Wasn't going to argue either way if you liked him over Taylor. But Taylor obviously jumps him. He's back to 2.
Yep.
ETN jumps him.
Yep.
Is Josh Jacobs the line for you still? Or do you like Jacobs better?
Probably just because Jacobs isn't that old, but like
he's only 25. I mean, Walker's a superior athlete to Jacobs.
And Jacobs is entering the threshold now where I want to get rid of running backs. He's about to be on a second contract.
Yeah, once he signs that second contract, but
yeah, so I would still prefer Walker there. Charbonnet for me is significantly lower. He is, I mean, he would have been like a fringe top 12 dynasty running back for me.
Yeah, he was pushing it.
He's probably closer to like 25 right now. Because I just don't see a pathway for him to be an elite fantasy producer at any point.
I've seen a few people talking about it. I was just curious where in your head they were to you.
Yeah, he took a tumble. What's going to be really gross is having to decide whether or not he's worth taking at like the end of first rounds, just because like I liked him so much as a prospect, but like his situation is awful for him to be a producer for fantasy.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It'll be tough. That'll do it for this one. If you enjoyed the episode, leave us a review. It helps us out so much if you do that. If you leave reviews, especially on Apple Podcasts, it boosts the podcast to new viewers significantly. So if you enjoy what we're doing here, leave us a review. The algorithm. You got
the all-knowing algorithm.
So please leave us a review and rate the show where you can do that. Check us out on Instagram at @FantasyBrothers_ or on Twitter at @FantasyBros_. We got lots of good stuff over there. And if you're listening on wherever your podcasts are being listened to, check us out on YouTube. You can find us at Fantasy Brothers over there. That'll do it for this one. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace. Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Brothers podcast. If you enjoyed the episode and want to connect to us, follow us on Instagram at @FantasyBrothers_ or on Twitter at @FantasyBros_. If you want to support the show, you can do that at Patreon /Fantasy Brothers.